So it's pass optimal in GPP winning lineups. I think I have my stats going all the way back to 2018. So during this segment, I'm going to be reviewing each GPP winning lineup versus the optimal. And if I have a sweet spot optimal or a realistic lineup, realistic optimal, I'll also include that information in here as well, just to give you an idea of the different types of lineup builds you could do this week. We keep track of these just to see, does the cream rise to the top? You know, DraftKings prices their golfers based off of the odds of the tournament, of each golfer in the tournament. So your best golfer is obviously going to be your most expensive golfer, and so on, and and then it goes down. It's a rank order, basically. In 2018, your optimal lineup used up $47,800 of the salary. Remember, it's $50,000 salary caps on DraftKings, meaning we left $2,200 on the table. That's impossible. Don't even think about doing that. Just don't. That optimal, though, used up a $6,600 golfer in Satoshi Kodaira, $7,400 Siwoo Kim, $8,300 Bryson DeChambeau, $8,900 Luke List, $7,200 Billy Horschel, and $9,400 Webb Simpson. So no 10K golfer. It was basically 9 8s, 7s, and 1 6. So really, it's 2 9s. I misspoke. I'm trying to think. So it's a 9K golfer, 2 8s, 2 7s, and a 6. There we go. That gets you $47,800. Now, I create a more realistic optimal because we're not going to leave a lot of money on the table. So I want to get as close to $50,000 as possible. For this tournament, I determined the closest we could get really is Ian Poulter at $9,300, $9,400 Webb Simpson, and then the 4 golfers we already mentioned. And $8,900 Luke List, $8,300 Bryson DeChambeau, $7,400 Siwoo Kim, and $6,600 Satoshi Kodaira because he won the tournament. But also, you'd probably put him in your lineup if he's inside the top 5 regardless. And that left $100 on the table. You used 2 9K golfers, 2 8K golfers, a 7, and a 6. So this could be a week where my buddy Chad Eckert will pepper the 8K range and be successful, because it looks like, having some 8K golfers or just a balanced lineup would be great just looking at 2018, but there are more years to look at. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. 2019, your optimal lineup again left a ton of money on the table, leaving $3,000 on the table this week, or that year. Sorry, 2019. That's impossible. Just don't do that. That just bad advice. The optimal did use a 10K golfer, believe it or not, and a 9K golfer, but it was surrounded by 3 6K golfers and a 7K. So just to recap, that's a 10, 9, 7, 3 6s. Insane. Like, that's difficult to do. Now, a more realistic lineup was just substituting one of those 6K golfers for an 8K golfer, and then you got a realistic lineup that used up $49,100. That might be a bit challenging. I mean, look at how many 6K golfers were inside this top 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 6K golfers inside the top 10 in 2019. Now, before you get ahead of yourselves and just think you need a 6K golfer, just remember the RBC Heritage usually doesn't have as strong a field as it does this year. In 2019, your top price guy was actually Dustin Johnson, who isn't necessarily a good course fit for this golf course. It's best to be methodical, be good on approach. Dustin bludgeons the golf ball. He hits it super far. But then we have Francesco Molinari, who was just underneath him, would be a golfer we would think fits this mold. Xander, and then Bryson, which I can't. Bryson in 2019 wasn't really hulking up and trying to, bash this golf course to death like he ended up doing later on. All of that's really interesting because we do have 5 10K golfers this week, and we had 5 10K golfers in 2019. Not quite the same caliber, but it's hard to argue at that time that DJ wasn't an elite golfer. Maybe not so much Francesco. Xander was still pretty good at that. I mean, he's good right now, but he was good in 2019. Bryson, pretty much the same thing. So it's super interesting. That's all I'm trying to say here. This actually, in comparison to this year, this is a good like A team versus B team type of scenario where you would imagine some of these golfers were going to be good at this event. So I don't know. I'm not going to get ahead of myself and say it's a good comparison, but interesting again, nonetheless. And again, it follows the Masters. So how many of the high price guys are really going to be all in it? Hard to say. It's an elevated event. So again, take it with a grain of sand, grain of salt. In 2020, it's difficult. So in 2020, we had one tournament that preceded the Heritage. Remember, this was coming back from COVID. So all of these tournaments that I have here, they were past, a month, past 2 months from playing this event, or, any of these weeks. So I don't include them in recent form, and that's why I hid them. That's why you see all this other noise on the screen. We did have the Charles Schwab Challenge that was right before the RBC Heritage. So I don't know what to make of this. This was a super year where you had all the best golfers show up. So maybe this is a great comparison. But when it comes to like recent form or, last week stats, last year I still would use, but I'm not sure about last week. And again, this was also played during a different time of the year where actually the Bermuda came through. So more wrinkles to add to, trying to get down to what kind of comparison can you get from this? But again, in 2020, we had kind of the same field we have this year. Do I actually have strength of field points calculated? Probably not, I'm guessing. I don't. Okay, that's a bummer. It'd have been nice to kind of do a one for one, comparison, but I don't have it. You can see Rory, JT, DeChambeau, Rahm, Sander, Morikawa, Matsuyama, Rose, like a lot of good golfers came over here. We had Brooks, Jordan Spieth, Dustin Johnson. There were a lot of good names in 2020. Now, of course, this is coming right back from COVID. So how much of this data can you actually use? Your optimal lineup only left. Let me go ahead and remove this. I just wanted to show you the golfers. Your optimal lineup left $100 on the table, and it used a $9,000 Webb Simpson, $8,900 Daniel Berger. By the way, Webb Simpson, obviously the best course fit, or when it comes to course history, he was the golfer you wanted to choose. Him and Daniel Berger. So just remember, in 2020, these were popular names. Actually, if I were to show you the ownership percentages, I'm sure we probably see that. Maybe? Yeah. Webb Simpson, 27% owned. Yeah. Everyone knew that this was a Webb golf course. And really your ownerships up top it was pretty high and pretty heavy. So just throwing that in there just to provide that information. But it's your optimal line started with a 9K, 9,000 flat, $8,900 Daniel Berger, $8,000 Tyrrell Hatton, $8,000 Abraham Ancer, $7,400 Joaquin Niemann, and an $8,600 Brooks Koepka. Again, Chad's gonna love this because this is 4 8K golfers. When do you ever see 4 8K golfers in an optimal lineup or even in a GPP winning lineup? Because that's exactly what the Millie Maker had. So the Millie Maker actually matched the optimal lineup. That also never really happens. So 2020 was interesting, and it could be a good precursor or whatever you want to call it to this year. Might be. I don't know. We'll have to keep kind of thinking about that, going through all of this and thinking about it. In 2021, your optimal left $3,900 on the table. So we're seeing a big trend here, leaving a lot of money on the table, which again, I strongly advocate against. Don't do that. But your optimal that year started with a $9,300 Corey Connors, $9,100 Matt Fitzpatrick, $7,300 Emiliano Grillo, $7,000 Harold Varner III, and then two $6,700 golfers in Stuart Sink and Maverick McNeely. Again, leaving $3,900 on the table. Your GPP winning lineup started with a 10K golfer in Cam Smith, $8,500 Shane Lowry, $9,100 Matt Fitzpatrick, $7,300 Emiliano Grillo, $6,700 Stuart Sink, and $8,200 Billy Horschel. So that started 10-9, 8-8, 7-6. I always advocate for the 10-9-8, 7-7-6 approach. This one substituted one of those 7K golfers up to an 8K golfer, still kept it under the salary cap, actually right at the salary cap, leaving no money on the table, and obviously taking down a GPP. Now, to me, a more realistic optimal, you don't want to leave $3,900 on the table. So one that gets really close to 50,000, using up 50,000, and being the highest point or scoring total would be using Cam Smith at 10,200, $9,300 Corey Connors, $9,100 Matt Fitzpatrick, 2 low 7s, and then the 6K. So that is another way you could build lineups. We basically substitute the 8K up to a 9K, and that's how we get this realistic optimal. So we're seeing a bunch of different types of lineup builds so far. It is definitely favoring more of a balanced build at this event. Definitely the lower 10K golfers showing up a lot, like flat 10,000. So you can see that even in 2022. 2021, it was 10,200 for your $10,000 golfer. There was not a $10,000 golfer in the optimal or GPP winning lineup in 2020, but you have JT down here at 10,900. You also have DeChambeau at 10,700. They weren't the most expensive 10K golfers that week. In 2019, flat $10,000 Matt Kuchar. He was also not the most expensive 10K golfer. You had Dustin Johnson down here, 11,600. And then in 2018, we don't have a 10K golfer, but it looks like pricing was a bit different. DJ at 12,000, Kuchar down here at 10.8. So you can still get a 10K golfer inside the top 20. Of course, we're looking for top 10s when you do choose a 10K golfer. So I think starting with the 10K golfer is still the way to go. I mean, I think it's still worth it to start with a 10K golfer and go from there. But it is proving that a more balanced lineup build is a bit more successful at this event. In 2022, your optimal started with $10,000 Patrick Cantlay, $9,200 Jordan Spieth, $8,500 Harold Varner III, Cam Young at $7,500, $7,800 Matt Kuchar, and a $6,600 JT Poston. What kind of build is this? The 10-9-8-7-7-6 special. Again, I think it's the best way to start. Start out that way. Build your 1 lineup that way, your 3 lineups that way, your 10 lineups, 100 lineups. You're going to have success more often than you're not. I think it's probably the best way to go this week. Although, again, kind of being more balanced seems a bit more beneficial. Your GPP winning lineup used 2 9s and a 10K golfer, by the way. So Cantlay, Shane Lowry, Jordan Spieth, $6,600 JT Poston, $7,300 Eric Van Rooyen, $7,100 Patton Kizzire, and you used up all $50,000 of your salary. So we'll cover more about salaries and the bucket system and kind of the success rates, what I project to be inside the top 10 this week. So you can either skip forward to that or continue watching all of this. I will get there eventually. But just going over the pass optimal and GPP winning lineups, I'm getting the sense that going a bit more balanced is the way to go. And I have to imagine it has a lot to do with the Masters being the tournament right beforehand. A lot of our best golfers probably a little fatigued from the Masters, especially those that were in contention. So, like JT last year, he finished 35th. He had an 8th place finish at the Masters. I don't know if he backdoored that. I have no idea if it was an easy 8th place, if it was a struggle. I just don't remember. You also had Cam Smith and Dustin Johnson, who also top 20'd at the Masters. They missed the cut. It literally gets down to the 5th 10K golfer before we have a top 5 finish, top 10 finish. But then we have one right underneath with Shane Lowry. And then obviously Jordan Spieth at $9,200. So there were a total of 13 golfers, 9K and above. I don't think we have that this week. We go to 2013. 10 golfers, 9K and above. So building lineups is going to be a bit easier this week than it was last year. And I think that probably applies throughout most of the years that we have salaries for the RBC Heritage, that is. Man, that's really interesting. A lot to consider when building lineups. Okay. That is going to cover pass optimal and GPP winning lineups.